Hello everyone, what's up and welcome back to another video. My name is Jordan if you are new to my channel. I am a professional figure skater and I am currently working and living on board the Utopia of the Seas, which is Royal Caribbean's newest ship. Skating has been a part of my life for over 23 years, so 100% it is a personality trait of mine, but I've also been a professional for over 5 years. So today I wanted to sit down and talk to you all about what it's like to be a performer, and not just a performer, but an ice skater on a cruise ship. Becoming a professional skater has been a dream of mine since I was a little girl. I've always wanted to perform in shows. It's just been a dream come true for the last 5 years. I've had so much fun. I've been able to see so much of the world. I've traveled to over 44 countries and I've gotten to perform in front of thousands of people. So I just wanted to share some of my experience with you and answer some of the questions you guys sent in. I have talked about my skating journey before, my competitive history and things like that, so I will link a couple of helpful videos for you that might be interesting to you to watch after this. But I had you guys send in questions both on my YouTube and also Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, I am posting very regularly on there, so I'll have that linked below for you if you want to follow me and see what I'm up to on a more regular basis. But we have so many questions to get through, probably will not be able to answer them all, but as always I can do a part 2 if that's something you're interested in. Before we jump into any of the questions, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of insider information about the basics of my job. So I am one of the entertainers on board. I perform in the ice show, but I also have other duties on top of skating. Of course, I was hired to be a performer, but while I am a performer, I'm also a crew member on board. So on top of skating in the show, my second most important duty is safety on board. So everyone has an emergency card and we have to know what to do in an emergency. So everyone has a unique number which tells them where to go, when to go, and what they need to be doing in order to ensure safety and making sure that everyone is accounted for. So that is one of my duties, and along with that we have to do weekly drills. With those crew drills, we also have to help out with muster 2.0, which is our safety briefing on day 1. The muster 2.0 shifts are usually a couple of hours. We have to scan in the guests, give them a safety briefing, show them how to put on a life jacket if they didn't watch the video, and then send them on their way. It's very standard. We do have a rotation for that, so we might not have to do it every single turnaround, but that is a regular duty we have to perform. With the exception of this ship, every other contract I usually have to spotlight and dress the other performers backstage. We don't have to do it here only because we have black tracks, so we wear these packs in our costumes that are synced with the light technology and they follow us around. So the spotlight follows us as we skate, same with the dancers, so they have the same. And on top of that, we are performing shows at almost the same time, so it's just not possible with the schedule to help each other out. So we don't dress backstage and we don't spotlight. Other contracts, that is a duty of ours. We also run the all skate sessions, which are a public skate session for the guests. So we're in charge of setting that up. We have to have everyone sign waivers, we hand out skates, and that's pretty much it. And then we do have other miscellaneous duties that come up. They are in our contract, but it is up to the discretion of cruise director and just sort of what the ship schedule entails. That being said, let's jump on into the questions, shall we? What is your favorite and least favorite part of the show? My favorite part of the show, this is a tough one to start with, to be honest, because I love everything about the show. There isn't one section of the show that I don't enjoy performing. I would say my favorite part of the show is my Tutti Frutti solo. It is so my style. It encapsulates everything that my skating is. I feel like it is the perfect fit for me. The costume is so cute and it's just a really fun solo to skate. High energy, fast paced, and I always have so much fun doing it. My least favorite part of the show is probably my quick change into woman. It's a very, very fast change. I have to run off of the song before, throw a couple things on, and get back out on the ice. It's stressful every time, and obviously I have gotten faster with it as the contract goes on, but I have to be very focused because if something goes wrong in that change, I won't make it out on the ice in time. So yeah, that's definitely my least favorite part. I wish we had a little bit more time to change there. Do you have days off while working your contracts, and do you get days off? Love your videos. Well, thank you so much. The schedule really depends contract to contract. Every single contract is different. Currently I'm on Utopia and we do actually have days off here, which is honestly unheard of. I was not expecting that. Coming to this contract, I was preparing myself for a much more strenuous schedule, and that's not to say it's not busy. It is very, very busy, but we do still have a little bit of time off. We're not performing the show every single day. We do have some days where we don't have shows in the evening, which is really nice. As far as holidays off go, that's not really a thing on board. You sign your contract, and no matter what the duration is, that is how long you are on board. So if you happen to be on board throughout Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all of that, you are working on those days. Those are just another work day. They're not a holiday per se, and you don't get to go home for them. And of course, this includes every other holiday as well, but that's just an example for you. Most memorable performing experience. This is a tough one. I gotta say, this is a tough one. I can't pick just one, but I can give you a couple. The first one that comes to mind is my very first opening night on my first contract, which was on Allure of the Seas. Going along with that, my closing night on Allure, my first contract, finishing out my first contract, was a very bittersweet moment. It was very emotional for me. I definitely cried a lot, and I do remember it being matinee shows, and it was also very rocky because we were doing a crossing. So those are 2 days in particular I will never forget. Of course, opening the show here was one of the most special moments ever because we unveiled a brand new show for the very first time. That was such a special moment that I will also never forget. And the other one is probably opening after the return to service. So we were the first ice cast back on Adventure. This was my second contract, and it was after about 15 months back home, stuck without a job. So that show, I bawled my eyes out. I just was so happy to be back to performing again, even though it was a very, very small audience. With all the social distancing in the audience, like there was only maybe 300 people in the audience, but to get to perform again, that was a feeling unlike anything else. So those are probably my top 4. Sorry, I couldn't pick just one. Moving on, is there an art to costume changing without ripping it on a skate? So our costumes are designed so that we don't have to take our skates off. We don't have time to take our skates off and put them back on in between changes. So if, for example, we have pants, there are zips on the inside seams. Similar with that, if you have it already unzipped, you try to grab, and what I like to do is put my toe pick in first and kind of slide my foot in like that with the rest of the blade. Say this is my blade. If I try to just slide it through like this, it's not gonna work. So I try to angle it like that, it's easier. I don't know if that made any sense. But of course, sometimes you have a costume ripping or a zipper breaking or something like that. It's very common, and especially when it's the least convenient time for it to break, that's sometimes when it happens, but you just gotta keep going. Does the chair balancing happen on every cruise or only ComCs? Nope, it's every single cruise. For those wondering, the chair balancing, that is our specialty act in the show, so he is a chair stacker. How far is the dressing room from Studio B, and is it shared with the other casts? So the dressing room for Studio B is just behind Studio B and one deck up. So it is a little bit of a pain to have to bring our costumes up and down every day, but it isn't a far walk. And that dressing room is designated for ice cast only. So every cast has their own dressing room, and that is right next to their venue. Do people ever fall? What do you do if that happens? So the show must go on. You know, that's showbiz. I mean, it happens. We are figure skaters. There's always that risk of you falling because the second you leave the ice, you are jumping, rotating very quickly, and landing on one foot on a very thin blade. So no matter how many times you've landed something, if the takeoff is wrong or you're not positioned correctly, like there is a chance you could fall. I will say this cast is very consistent. We don't have a lot of falls in the show, but it does happen, and if it does, you just get up and keep going. Do you still get nervous before shows? I generally do not ever get nervous. I would say the only time I have a little bit of butterflies in my stomach is on opening night because it's the first time you're performing for an audience. But I would say that's more of excitement than it is nerves. I don't get nervous the way that I would, I guess, compare it to nerves when I used to compete. This is just so much more enjoyable. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy competing. I loved it, but I enjoy performing so much more. What is the advantage to warming up so many hours before the shows? So if you watch my vlogs, you understand, but if you don't, we have to warm up on the ice hours before the show. So say the show is at 7 o'clock, the first warm-up group is at 3:45, and that sounds a bit ridiculous, but for us, it's really hard to organize enough ice time for everyone to warm up and have the space to warm up before they open the house. So we have 3 different warm-up groups, and usually there's 3 to 4 people on a warm-up. We each get 30 minutes to warm up, and the reason why they're so early is because we need, like I said, the time and space for everyone to have an adequate warm-up. If we had 12 people on the ice at once trying to each do their individual things, we would never get anything done. So it's easier to break up the groups, and it gives everyone ample time. It also gives the stage staff time to resurface the ice, patch up any holes, let the ice sit for a while and dry so it's not so wet, and then the house opens. Because obviously we're not gonna be warming up for the show in front of the guests. I feel like that kind of just ruins the surprise. I totally understand why you'd be confused about that. It seems weird to warm up at 4 o'clock to skate a show at 7, but it just feels nice to touch the ice the same day that you're going to do a show. Do you get to learn new skills during a contract? Absolutely. That is totally up to your discretion though. I mean, if you're not looking to learn anything new, you don't necessarily have to. I personally always like to push myself and set a goal or multiple goals for a contract. Pairs has always been a goal of mine for as long as I can remember. I love single skating, and I would say I'm a fairly strong single skater, but pairs just seems like so much fun. So last contract, I learned all the lifts on the floor with my friend Graham. This contract, my goal is the headbanger, so I've been working on that and it's been coming along really nicely. So that's super exciting, but it's, again, really up to you, what you want to learn, and taking the initiative to try to improve. Because as pros, we aren't required to do certain things. I mean, we are, I take that back. We are required a certain skill level, but usually what you're hired with is what you need to sustain. Moving on, how do you guys get to the opposite corners where there isn't backstage in the show? On Oasis class only, downstage and upstage are actually connected under the seats. This isn't a thing on Freedom class or Voyager class, but underneath where the seating is in the actual venue, in the backstage area, there is a hallway basically that connects. So that is how you can get into those corners. It is a nice way to add some different entrances and exits for shows. This show in particular, I only enter and exit upstage left and right, but other shows like Wonder, I have exited downstage before. Just sort of depends on the choreography. When does your contract end? Thinking about sailing in December. So my contract ends December 16th. That is when I sign off. So that cruise before will be my final cruise and my final shows. What has been your favorite show to perform while working on cruise ships? Definitely this show. This show is by far my favorite show overall. So special for so many reasons, but it's also just so fun to skate. My second favorite has got to be Wonder. I am absolutely in love with that show. And I think also because I wasn't there for a super long time, I almost feel like I could have definitely performed the show many more times. What has been your biggest challenge working this current contract? It's a tough question. I'm gonna give you 2 answers because they're very different from each other, but first thing I will say that's really difficult is the schedule. I have been finding it really difficult to keep my body in top shape. We are doing 8 shows a week, which is a lot. It's more than I've ever done on any ship contract. Of course, I did perform in the land contract for a month, and that was very intense because I was doing 3 to 4 shows every single day without a day off for a month. However, that was different because I was really only skating a little bit in opening. I had my solo and then I came out for finale, but it was very, very manageable. I mean, the schedule was not, but the show difficulty for me was not as demanding. Not nearly as demanding as the show here. I'm doing everything in the show pretty much on the ice all the time, plus I have a solo and also a step out. So I think the biggest challenge for me is keeping my body feeling really good. I haven't had any serious injuries or problems with my hips or anything like that, but I'm not feeling fresh, if you will. So some days I do feel really tired, muscle fatigue, because we are skating the show a lot. And I do have aches and pains here and there that I'm pushing through, but it's just part of the process, I guess, part of the contract. The second thing that's been really challenging is the fact that we are really not going anywhere. Having only 2 ports for the entire 7 months is mentally challenging. While it is really nice to be in Florida twice a week, like 2 turnarounds a week is great, it's also a bit discouraging and a bit repetitive and monotonous going to CocoCay and Nassau, and that's it. I mean, there's only so much you can do in CocoCay. It's a small private island. It's amazing, and I love CocoCay. I love having a free day and a really yummy lunch, and I love the beach, but can't really venture out, and it is a bit of an extension of the ship. And then Nassau, you know, there is things to do, but it's probably one of my least favorite Caribbean ports. And I don't want to be negative, but just mentally it's a bit challenging. You feel like it's Groundhog Day a little bit, but I mentioned it in another vlog. It's really important for me to try and switch up my routine a little bit here and there, just so that it breaks it up and it doesn't feel so repetitive. But yeah, I would say those are my two biggest challenges at the moment. Have you ever been asked to extend your contract to stay on the same cruise ship, or do you have to sign a new contract each time? Personally, I have never been asked to extend. I did request to extend on one of my contracts. Back when I was on Voyager, I requested to extend for 2 months, and it was approved by my boss. I know that people can be asked to extend, but personally, I never have. Otherwise, you usually just get a brand new contract for the next ship that you are going to. And the contract always says the dates of when you sign on and sign off. It can be subject to change, but it gives you an idea of how long you're going to be there, and of course what ship you'll be on. Is there anything skating related you can't do just yet despite being a professional? I mean, for sure, there's a ton of things that I think all of us can still learn. Even though I'm a professional, there is so much that I can learn and improve on. Obvious one is being a pair skater. I have been learning lifts and having really fun with that process, but obviously I'm not there quite yet. As a single skater, there's some tricks that, as much as I'd love to be able to do them, they're just not possible for me. For example, a donut spin, I'll never be able to do. My shoulders are just too turned in, and it's really hard for me to twist my elbow a certain way to grab the blade. My body is just not quite built that way, even though I am flexible. Same with like an Ina Bauer. I would love to do a gorgeous Ina Bauer. I can make it work, but it's never gonna be absolutely jaw-dropping, if you will. But that is okay. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and you just gotta play your strengths, because we are all different and we all have something different to bring to the table. What is your favorite part about performing? I love this question. There's so many things I love about it. It's hard to pick a favorite. I would say getting to make other people happy and just entertain them is the best feeling. Getting to see that what you are putting out for others to watch is well received, and just bringing people joy. It's such a fulfilling feeling, and it just never gets old. It is the best feeling in the world. How is performing on the ice when the water is really bad and the boat sways a lot? It's definitely more difficult. Even if you don't necessarily feel it when you're sitting in the seats watching us, we can definitely feel it when we're skating. So if it's really rocky, it kind of throws us off our axis, and it makes it much more difficult to stabilize and also know where you are in the air, or even when you're skating. Likewise, when it's listing, which means the ship is at an angle one way or the other, it's also very difficult, because if you're skating one direction and it's like this, it's really hard to skate uphill, more or less. And then when you turn to go the other direction, you are flying into the wall. So it's a more exhausting show when you are balancing those factors in. Definitely much easier to skate when it's completely still, but we are skating on a cruise ship, so it is to be expected. Do you always warm up with the same people, or do you get to warm up with others? It really depends on how the ice captain organizes the warm-ups. Pretty much all of my ice captains across all of my different contracts have like to switch it up, which I think is really nice. So every couple of weeks we switch up who we're warming up with. Our schedule will tell us what time our warm-up is and who we are with. So it is usually mixed up a little bit. Obviously pair skaters have to skate together, so that's 2 people out of 4 on a warm-up, but as a single skater you can get mixed around. Also with warm-ups, we do have a rotation, so you're not always the first, second, or third warm-up. If you are the first on day 1, then the next show day you'll be the second warm-up, and then the show day after that you'll be the final warm-up. So it is very fair and even for everyone. Is there any type of punishment that happens if you fall or mess up during a show? No, there is not. If it's, you know, one-off here and there, it's totally fine. There's no punishment, there's no penalty, there's no fine. But if it does become a consistent issue and it's regularly a problem, then corrective actions might be taken. So the element that is giving you issues might have to be adjusted. Also, you might be requested to do open ice extra just to work on it. It just sort of depends on the issue and on the person and the situation, of course. So of course it is important for us to be consistent, but at the same time, it's impossible to be 1000% perfect every single time, especially with how many shows we are doing. How do you modify your track if you can't do an element? So when you sign on a contract, usually when you're installed into the show, the installer will have an idea of what your go-to tricks are, but usually when you're learning your solo, they will also ask you what kind of elements you want to put into the number. So where there's a jump pass and a spin pass, it can be adjusted to fit you best. There are some tracks, of course, they want a specific element there and you can work to get it, but most of the time it is a bit flexible, which is really nice. I have had a couple contracts where the spin was set in stone and it had to be that, and I had to completely learn that on the spot, but honestly, that's something I really enjoy because not only does it give me variety, it also pushes me to improve as a skater and learn new skills. What do you think about during shows? Do you zone out? I mean, I don't think about much during the shows. I'm just trying to be in the moment and into the character and the show, like whatever is happening in each section of the show, I'm trying to really play on that character. Of course, here and there, I have days where it's harder for me to focus and I have like random thoughts here and there because it is muscle memory at this point, but for the most part, I can stay pretty focused. How long do you have to change from one costume to another? Really depends on the change. I would say my quickest change this contract is 16 seconds. So it's really fast. How difficult is it to skate using costumes? Depends on the costume. I would say my experience on ships, most costumes are not the easiest to skate in. Even if they look effortless, sometimes they are deceiving. So a lot of costumes are not necessarily made to easily move around in. Most of the costumes are comfortable and of course they fit you really well. But if you have a really heavy costume, that makes it more difficult to jump in. If you have a headpiece as well, that can throw you off, or a mask you can't see as well. There's a lot of factors and the costumes always look stunning, but they are definitely difficult to skate in sometimes. This show in particular, all the costumes are fairly easy to skate in. There's a couple, obviously, costumes here and there. My solo costume, I had some adjusting because the skirt was very full. There's a lot of layers underneath, which almost is like a parachute when I jump, so it slows my rotation down a bit. I am, of course, used to it now, but at the beginning, it was definitely a little bit of trial and error and just readjusting. Why do you not have backstage dressers for this show? The reason why is because all the shows are happening pretty much at the same time. Because we're doing 3 and 4 day cruises, there isn't a ton of options for when the shows can go on. So if we are having a show, chances are another cast is also having a show, maybe an hour later. So we aren't able to be there for each other to do the changes, but we have figured it out where other people in the cast can help change us and assist us where it's needed. And if there's no other cast members able to help us, sometimes the stage staff will also help us. For my final question of the video, what is your favorite solo you've ever performed? Coming in at number 2, my second favorite solo was the Sun solo on Voyager. I love that solo so much. The costume is great. The song is so fun, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed performing that. And my favorite solo, which you guys can probably guess, is my solo here on board Utopia. This solo means everything to me. It is so special to me. I feel so fulfilled getting to skate it. It is so my style, and it was curated and catered exactly towards my strengths. And I just feel like it's a very challenging solo, but it's very rewarding, and I feel very proud of the solo that we have created and what I put out onto the ice every single show day. So yeah, those are all the questions for now. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing some inside scoop and learning a bit, hopefully. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. I will do another Q&A down the road. As always, thank you guys so much for your constant support. It means the world to me, and I cannot believe the community that we have developed online. It's just crazy to me, and it's always very special for me to get to meet you in person. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you all have an amazing day when you're watching this. I love you to the moon and back, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.